Hello everybody, this is Elfos, Splits, whatever the fuck you want to call me, and this is a different type of video that I've been wanting to make for a few months now, way before I started even recording those Stands Online 2 videos. But it's really about a social commentary on the game as a whole and the state it is in right now compared to when I started playing this game. For those who don't know, I've been playing this game for a little, almost 3 years. Like, I started playing in like May of 2019, which was a long time ago. I think I was like 15 at the time, so a lot of time has passed. I've been playing before Brother Noval, I believe, even made his Roblox account. And way before Brother Noval even started playing. But like, I really, when I first started this game, I knew nothing about JoJo. I really avoided anime games, and I kind of played this game because I didn't even know what it was. It didn't have an anime I knew of in the title, and I just kind of clicked on it, and I was like, "Oh, this is an anime game," and I kind of just played it for like 30 minutes, and I went on with my day. But then I just kind of came back to it, and I kept coming back to it, and I showed my friends this game. Some of you may know in the community, some who have left the community, and I don't know. I just wanted to play this game, and I still play this game. Every time I try and leave this game, I continue to play this game, which really saddens me because I feel like there's a lot of problems with the game in the current state it is. And like, I know apparently update 2 of Easter is supposed to be a really big update and stuff like that, but I kind of want to talk about my gripes and problems with the game and what can be done to improve it while we're here, while the game is in this current state, in just hopes that someone watches it uh, and just shoots out ideas. This is more like a social commentary video rather than something for entertaining, and I'd really appreciate it if you watched it in full. Now, I'm going to try and play this in the perspective of a new player because I feel like that's a really important perspective to play as, because I feel like it's a perspective that a lot of us have forgotten and taken for granted. Now, I know a lot of you feel sentimental towards the old map. Me, myself included, I really miss the old map, and I believe that the first rework of the Hammond Golem castle, or the first castle in general, was the best castle they had. But like, that's besides the point. I want to talk about the layout. I feel like the layout of this map is kind of garbage. Not to say that the map itself is bad. The map itself has a lot of good potential, and I feel like with some reworks to the layouts and the spawns and stuff like that, the map could be 10 times better. But I feel like as it is currently, it's misleading towards a lot of new players, and they really struggle to find their place in this map. Now, the first two quests are pretty self-explanatory, and I don't think a lot of players struggle with them, and especially a lot of players who are at higher prestiges who are still kind of learning the grips of the game won't even do the first two quests because it's kind of just, you're gonna naturally learn that it's kind of easier to just jump to gorillas. Fun tip for those who still don't do that, because I was getting into an argument with someone today who wasn't doing that and didn't realize that. But yeah, if I were to just start in this game, it's not really hard to realize that this is kind of the center of the map, right here, the hub world, the fountain. Stardadium himself guiding new players since I've been playing. Um, and really from there, you can really find the first quest and what you're expected to kill fairly easily. Uh, it's not really trying to hide it from you. Maybe it could be slightly closer, but other than that, it's pretty easy. And you're definitely going to run into the second quest in the pursuit of doing this quest. Finding the second quest may be a little bit harder, but it's not that hard. And most players will be able to naturally do it on themselves. Now, after that, though, I feel like the success and the layout of the map really just drops off from there and gets worse and worse as you move up the quest. First things first, if you spawn anywhere from the fountain to, I believe this is the furthest spawn right here, I feel like this map is already gonna have the chance to mislead you with this over here. If you started at the fountain and kind of just went here, you're already making your way rightward, and the game forces you to go rightward when you're doing the brute quest. So I feel like a lot of players have the rights to assume that the quests are gonna presume rightward, and it looks like it's gonna go rightward. There's even a path leading you rightward. This path doesn't take you anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere, and I feel like that's already a big problem with the map. Is wasted potential and wasted space. Like, yes, the old arena is there, and the projectile or hitbox measuring, if you really want to call it, the stud counter, I'll call it, is there. But other than that, this is all wasted space right here. Nothing is here. This, as much as I wanted to get on top of this and climb this, for the most part, it's almost impossible. There's nothing up there. There's nothing there. It's just, I feel like good map design doesn't have wasted space like that. It's not like you're gonna find anything special. There's no secret spawn, there's no secret boss, no secret treasure, no Easter egg dropped by the mod. I looked everywhere. I went through those areas when this map dropped. Um, and I feel like that's already a problem. You're already misleading players who are trying to do those quests. Um, Obviously you can be redirected. You're obviously gonna have to be forced to walk all the way there to look for the third quest, and hopefully you'll be taking up the mountain. The thing is like the game doesn't really tell you what's up there. Like there's a little sign up there that tells you where the quest is, and like it's kind of there too, but like you have gyros, which is all the way over there, and the gorilla spawn over here. But this sign itself is not one that players are necessarily reading. That's actually one they're very much skipping. And I feel like had this sign been over here, you'd already know what's up here. Because trust me, I didn't even notice this sign until with what if this map came out in October, probably February. I didn't know the sign was here, which already shows that either you need to be looking more carefully, Foss, or that the sign needs to be relocated somewhere here where a player can actually see it. Upon getting up here, this is where I believe my main gripe with the layout of the map really struggles. And it's kind of the directions of the quest. Now, the gorilla quest itself is not hard, but it's really of what you do after the gorilla quest that you kind of struggle with. Gorillas, werewolves, and zombies. Now, I would love to walk through all of this, and I did that in my first recording, but I think a big problem with that is it took a lot of time. I'm going to kind of go over my problem with this, is the map kind of takes you into a circular motion. And so you're going to start with gorillas, obviously the first one, and they're going to lead you to werewolves. And the werewolves take you to vampires, the thing is. Like, yeah, you can cross over here, but most players who are going to be trying to follow the set path of where they're supposed to go are going to follow the arrows, which point them in this direction, and I am not going to move. I'm going to line up myself up with those arrows, and I'm going to walk straight. I'm just going to walk straight, except when I have to go around that tree. Because the game itself is taking you, well, somewhere. You're going to run your course into the mountain. Maybe you'll only see the castle if you turn your camera that way. But anyway, even if you did, you would find yourself mainly most of the time at the Vampire Cavern. Like, oh, you're getting closer. The game even has the Vampire Cavern spawn right out of this location right here. So you know that vampires are near in the area. Now you'll probably end up heading yourself here because, come on, big spooky castle. The vampires have to be there. Now you're going to jump the sign, the mansion, okay, stuff like that. Boom, sign over here, and you see the vampires. The game kind of naturally points you towards the vampires, but the problem is that the vampires aren't even the next quest. So you have to backtrack to the zombies. Now, it's not a huge gripe I have with the map, but I feel like for some players, that level of backtracking is kind of annoying. Like, even then, if you were to go gorillas, then up to werewolves, and you knew you had to go to zombies third time, you'd have to backtrack. And I feel like that kind of removes a sense of progression in the map. Again, it's kind of in a loop system, so you're eventually going to hit all of those 4 quests. But I feel like my main problem was with the golems. You will be surprised how many players have come up to me and asked me where the golems are, because it's a lot more than I can count on my fingers right now. I feel like the game takes no merit in directing you to where the golems are. In the old renditions of the map, you had that huge tower, which will be missed, and the castle iterations. The castles themselves were like looming things over the whole map. Like, this wasn't really a forest as much as it was a plain in the old map, so you could always see the castle. Here, the castle is high up. You can't see it. You can see some pillars leading you up there or some slopes, but again, unless you're going out of your way to climb this, the game fails to really point you to where the golems are, because there's a sign over there that points you to the vampires, and there's a sign at the vampire entrance that will point you all the way there. So unless you're just going to hop yourself up the mountain, the game really fails to show you where to go for golems. And I feel like that's just a problem right there. the game should be pointing you into the quests you go. It should be directing you where you should level, because the main thing you're supposed to be experiencing isn't the grinding process and doing these quests. It's rolling stands, which is what the game circles around. The whole thing of the game is PvPing and rolling stands. That's the whole gameplay, not the quests. Um, Talking more about rolling and stuff like that later. But even if you were to do this, the game kind of tries to issue you to explore this area a little bit more. Like, oh, it's kind of sealed off, and you can see it if you're like on max graphics. But like if you're on like one graphic, yeah, good luck. You're not really seeing anything special out there. It removes all the shading. You can kind of make out the lamp, not as well. Um, and again, that's if you're like zoomed out like me. Like most players, I think, play in a proximity like this, and which you won't see that, especially because your first instinct when entering is to enter and go right here, and you kind of circle all three, go back, circle, go back, all the way till your max level, and then after you hit max level, why should I suspect that I would be doing anything else? It's only when the game tells you that there's a Haman King or King Golem spawning that it really forces you to know what's back here. And I feel like when the Golem King was first added, the game did a pretty good job with telling you where it was. Like it was, the castle itself wasn't very big, so you would obviously eventually have to stumble across it. This, not so much. I was wondering when I first played this, I was like, it takes forever to get to this thing. And even then, it's just not as, I don't think the location itself is as memorable as it was when the Golem game was first added. Like it being a ruined, kind of decrepit, and in my opinion, worse textures on the walls and floor compared to what it was with the much more clean and elegant castle look in the original rendition. Kind of makes it feel bad. Had this been the arena, I think it would have been really cool. Um, but yeah, that's besides the point. The design of the area is not as important as the direction. I feel like the failure to direction the player where to go, um, especially just, and it's not even for older players, it's literally just for when you're starting out, is already a failure on the game's part. The game should be telling you where to go, and I think a game that really does a good job with this is YBA. YBA tells you where to go as soon as you click an NPC. As soon as you click an NPC, it tells you where to go. The game tells you what to do, and the game even rewards you with an arrow, and that kind of segues into our next point, which is getting a stand in the first place. Now, you can get lucky and have a really nice person in the server buy you an arrow, but that's only chance. And item spawns in private servers are really nice because, they spawn and you have them all to yourself. But in a public server, which is going to be full of players, a lot of high level players for the most part, is going to be brutal for a level 0 prestige 0 like you, like yourself. And I feel like the failure to even kind of supply some form of restricted arrow on the player's part to even just have a stand to level with is upsetting. Because finding a stand, a random rolled stand at that, should be it's part of the gameplay. That should be like the initial hook. Imagine if you started Stance Online and you went to little tree source over here to initiate the quest, and he's like, "Oh, I see you just started playing Stance Online, blah blah blah. Would you like an arrow? Yes or no?" And you click yes, and it gives you some form of restricted arrow just once. Uh, Again, it would be like kind of like a once per save file thing, and optional for those who are just trying to make alts or level up with alts, stuff like that, so they don't need that, and you can reject it because just by taking an arrow, imagine if the game just hooked you with an arrow immediately. Even if the map level design itself wasn't really that good, you would already have something to level with, and like it would again, it would obviously have to be coded in a way where it's not something like OP. It can even be like a set stand. Like I don't care. It can be like a rig to be a specific body with specific stats with a specific moveset, and it can be like named like starter stand Requiem or whatever, or starter stand Over Heaven. Because just giving players something to level with is so much better to just like start the game. Like if I'm doing brutes, it's so much easier for me to punch or chop or barrage them rather than for me to stand there one at a time to kind of just do this. Because one thing that people forget is that barrages have knockback and punching does not. So you can actually aggro all of them and stuff like that, and then just kind of barrage, step back a little bit, barrage, step back, and it just makes the leveling process so much faster compared to punching every single one at a time and stuff like that, where it really drags on. And I see players punching them, and it's just so sad to watch because they level up so slowly because they're not getting the effectiveness out of this game. And I feel like with some form of starter stand at this, the game would already fix so many problems, which I think it does right now, which is hooking the players or directing the players. Again, I think the old map did a really good job with directing the players because of just how it naturally was shaped, like kind of like a diamond shape, like a baseball field, where the game kind of just naturally drew you to the center fountain, which is where the game starts and like where the first quest is. And you see the thugs, and you go to the next quest. And when you're doing the brute quest, you know where you can see the gorilla quest, and where you're doing the gorillas, you can see the werewolves, and only then does it become a little bit more confusing. But that's so much better than kind of already failing to direct them after the brute quest with this whole long stretch all the way out there that doesn't direct you anywhere. Now let's say that was all fixed. Then there's a whole bunch of other can of worms. There's I know I don't really want to talk about stand balancing right now because they're on the cusp of reworking it, but I might as well talk about it now while it still exists as it is, because maybe I'll have some level of input. I would love to have a level of input because I feel like a lot of people, not just me, have a lot of things that they think could really fix that game and like don't even have the chance to like balance it out. But stand balancing this game is kind of shit. Like really shit. And it really ties into what makes a stand OP and what doesn't. Stands that are typically spec based uh, with non laggy moves are typically a lot stronger than that of physical stands. Like, and that has always kind of been the case. The game was always structured around kind of that system. Now the game has fixed that a lot, but like, come on, when you have a move like Hamen Mastery, which functions as passive regen, more than heavenly, might I add, it feels like you're almost like rigged to win the fight unless you're 2v1. And I feel like it's unavoidable because it's like, I know at the time when Clone was first released into the game, I know unrelated, but Clone, uh, it was said that Clone isn't an OP move. And this was at the time where Echo's Clone kind of stunned and was kind of the best stand in the game. But Clone wasn't a good move because all fights were meant to take place in town. And so they were supposed to aggro other players, and or the end or the just the quest things. And they've kind of fixed that with leveling because you can't gain XP off players anymore. But at the same time, the game really failed to encapsulate the fact that it has a competitive fan base and that people like to competitively PvP and have very strong PvP stands. And just like the level of balancing, like overheaven stands are always kind of been quote unquote less valuable, but always significantly stronger. Like Sun Immunity stands and Hamen Mastery stands are just kind of feel cheap and kind of easier win conditions and don't really take skill. Like the failure for a stand to feel like you kind of rolled for something rewarding only to be shut down by something really cheap, like whether it was KCR back then with Uni KCR just obliterating your health bar, or kind of the stun meta when it was at its peak. I think it peaked when Echo's Clone was a thing, and it's kind of been readjusted, but was still really bad and really cheap. And now the endurance meta, when it was just like your stand, which was leveled up, could just lose to a stand with a strong level based attacks like Gun and Clone, that ran 2k end and had Love Train that lasted for 20 seconds. It all felt really cheap. And I feel like in the current meta we're in, where the endurance meta has kind of been nerfed, we're kind of in a position where stands that do high knockback have Gun, because Gun right now is kind of cheese right now, uh, and some form of regenerative ability, whether that just be running Hamen or Hamen Mastery, are kind of much stronger than stands that used to kind of feel good. Like Knife specifically feels like a really kind of mediocre move right now. Like I have a stand that buffs Knife, of course, and I talked about this in my stand review. But again, a lot of stands that don't buff Knife have like half that damage and just kind of fail to really have an effective way to deal chip damage or stuff like that because of how punishable barrages are with them being forced to be held out, and chop stands kind of just being able to just boop them and stuff like that, or Hammond stands just being able to stall out and stun, or suit stands. Yeah, I didn't even mention suit stands. Suit stands being able to just run away and heal with Heavenly because mobility is by far the jankiest stat in this game that really should have never been added. Like the fact that stands are able to run circles with you is basically passive TA. Like how has no one even thought of it that way? Um, it's all really stupid, and it feels. I feel like a lot of stands feel cheese and shouldn't feel cheese. Um, I think specific examples are just Echoes as a whole. Still, I feel like Echoes can feel really cheap, and even though a lot of players will say, "Oh, Echoes is bad," um, it's not. Umimare is still quite good. Uh, any stand with freeze plus sizzle that has a high damaging feels cheap because sizzle is tied to your mouse key, so it's an instant guaranteed hit basically, and freeze stuns you for I don't know how long. So it just feels cheap when the game really felt back when I started playing, where it was like who can land their barrages or their attacks the best. Now it feels like who can stun and kind of get the first AoE attacks on. The first AoE attack or mouse assisted attack on first wins the fight. Like I was doing 1v1s with Cameron Short and they were running what was it? I think it was it was an Oni. And even though Oni has a speed debuff, or not a speed, a mobility debuff of I think -5%, it still felt like the stand itself was just running circles around me. And with its Hammond mastery, I couldn't deal the chip damage to even like effectively kill it, and it was just a pain to fight. And I felt like I had to bring in a stand with 3 freeze to feel like I had to beat it. That's not good gameplay, and that's not good balancing. Balancing shouldn't revolve around having a specific move. And I don't think it should revolve around having moves that feel kind of out of place in the game. I think the number one move that most players complain about getting right now is time stop movement, because now with stands having passive TSM like Hierophant Green Requiem or Tusk, uh, TSM feels like such a worthless move slot, especially because time stop isn't nearly as valued or spammed or used or looked upon as much as it was back in 2019. So I think just balancing as a whole needs to be reworked. I think the way talents are looked at needs to be reworked. Certain talents are significantly better than others. Spin is only good if you have things like Nail Bullet or Uni or on a fast stand. Oh, or Tusk Tusk or Ball Breaker in general. Like even Spin Knife feels kind of bad to use because you can just kind of like cancel out Spin with a projectile or a good hit. That the commitment to charge Spin I know balances it out, but in terms, look at things like Hammond, just base Hammond, that's a base 10% buff, no debuff of having it on like it used to. For those who don't know, it used to have a debuff where if you didn't have it on, it was basically nerfing your damage. Um, Hammond feels cheap and easy to use and has no real drawback compared to the other two. You burn in the sun as a vampire, and even though you can technically get to the arena, Hammond has that no downside. And Hammond Mastery, even though is even better than Sun Immunity. Sun Immunity, you don't burn in the sun, but you could once you lose your blood bar, that's basically it, unless you get a good flash freeze read on. Hammond Mastery is just on 20% of the time. It's a 20%, and if they decided to make it even more goaded with 20%, it's just passive regen. It's not fun to fight. It doesn't feel rewarding to fight, and I know a lot of players, including me, want it on their move sets for their OH stands, but it's just like it's a horribly balanced move because passive regen, things that buff mobility, things that buff defense, things that just stun or feel cheap reads that like they're tied to your mouse key or something isn't good move design. Stun isn't a good design. I think a lot of the stun problems and AoE attacks, like I was playing with a Killer Queen with a Bubble Bomb and Bubble Bomb. Although I was kind of annoyed in PvP that I wasn't hitting all the time, I could respect the fact that it wasn't going to hit me all the time in PvP Because for those who don't know, when Bubble Bomb was like kind of first added, its hitbox was huge and super easy to land, and it just felt cheap. And I feel like the move as of now is in a really good position where it's really well balanced. And I feel like other moves that are kind of more considered more busted, like Virus Gas or Hamon Mastery, like I've said repetitively, kind of need that level of balancing where it's like they should feel like good moves, but they also shouldn't feel like easy guaranteed hits. Because again, nail on Tusk, or not Tusk. It was nail on Wonder of You Can with which also has Heavenly. I know it's a giveaway and you can't naturally roll that move set because suits can't get nail, but that was doing more damages than my stand's knife. And that feels cheap. It doesn't feel fun. It's not rewarding to fight. Echo's knife still works. They said they were gonna remove that. It's just not fun to fight, and I feel like a lot of that core balancing, which I really hope they're gonna focus on and readjust, because I know they're reworking all the stand bodies accordingly, and I have really high hopes. Again, I really like the mods and devs that we have in Stands Online. We finally got a new developer, Pulpo Bed, and he seems really promising with the stuff that he's shown. I'm really excited for the future of the game, but I feel like just that level of readjustment is really needed. There shouldn't be the meta stand, and I feel like that's something that other like, I know I keep pointing to YBA, that YBA does really good. That there's a best stand. There's always going to be a best stand, but there should never be a stand that's leagues better than every other stand. And that's problems with like, yeah, there needs to be like junk bodies, but like bodies shouldn't be terrible like Catch the Rainbow or Blue Hawaii or Walking Heart that feels so obsolete and unusable. Maybe you can level with them, but that's about it. I feel like there shouldn't be that meta body and there shouldn't be that OP stand. It should just kind of feel like, and I'm not saying that stands shouldn't have diverse stats. Like there should always be stands better than the rest, but there shouldn't be like gaps or like the best stand. Because I feel like right now, if you ask what the best stand is, ugh, it's not even like best stand. It's more like best moveset. I feel like BSR, uh, the gun is just kind of cheese right now. There's no, again, I don't think there's a bet. I think the game has definitely fixed it, and it's been better than it is in the past. But a lot of stuff, just especially moveset wise, feels really cheap. Anyway, I've kind of ranted on that for that way too long. And then your players are definitely just destined to disagree, but this is just what from what I've experienced. Uh, in my terms of fighting, like I shouldn't. I feel like if I'm running 1500 and fighting a PH, it shouldn't be able to literally destroy my health bar with a Virus Gas and Hamon Mastery. Like, while I'm trying to deal chip damage, it's healing and just running and can run up, use Virus Gas and run back. It feels cheap and unfun to fight. But anyway, that kind of concludes my point on stand balancing. Again, I didn't want to I'm more hopeful for that, and I don't think it really needs to be fixed other than just kind of other all readjustments that have been promised that I'm really looking forward to. I'm really looking forward to see what they do. Because, like, although sometimes the mods don't make the best choices, like, I feel like the knife nerf had a lot of backlash, and the life punch nerf had a lot of backlash, although I kind of agreed with that. I feel like even if, like, the mods think it's for the best, it's always important to listen to your community and what your community says. I feel like something the community can agree on right now is the Eraser Hand range. The Eraser Hand range is like what, 15 studs? That's crazy. That's mental. And how they even thought that was okay is just mental. But anyway, that concludes the map. The farming aspect. No, we haven't even talked about farming. Farming is well, we kind of talked about farming with the rate of finding items, but I don't really have a complaint with farming. Stats are still bad all the time, but wreck chances have never felt so good before. And I feel like if you really put your mind to grinding, you really can roll a good stand. Grinding has never been as good as it has been, but I feel like there could always be room for improvement with grinding. Sometimes it just feels cheap. Lately, I feel like Rec Arrows haven't been giving me as good stats as they had been in the past. Maybe that's just me, but maybe some other people have experienced, and that could be looked into. But other than just like spawn rates and like giving players a free stand at the beginning to like hook them into the game and like just level up to get the cash to farm for stands. I don't think really anything needs to be readjusted. Stand pools, we could talk about stand pools. They're very controversial. A lot of players like them, a lot of players don't. I personally am in the boat that doesn't really care for them. I get it at the same time because it's like it's easier to roll in a certain stand, but at the same time, I didn't really feel like I was rolling bad stands all the time. Like there's only so many quote unquote bad bodies in each pool. Like Walking Heart, Blue Hawaii, and maybe like Little Feet Wreck or Love Love Deluxe Wreck kind of feel weaker compared to a lot of the other bodies, but those are only like four of like the what I want to say almost like 50 something bodies. And I feel like a big problem with the pool is that pools have failed to really just like relocate suits as a whole. Like suits are in the pool predominantly, and that's kind of like the one thing people always complained about rolling. So if anything, you've kind of just made that issue larger and made it even easier to kind of roll a suit, or you're rolling the same type of stand that you don't really want. Because it's like you can you rolled Future Sight and you wrecked it and it got time erased. That's a 2 of 2 KC, but that's useless if you didn't even roll KC. And KC head nonetheless. So I feel like pools either need to be expanded or rotated more frequently or stuff like that. Because honestly, like what we've had the part 5 and 6 pool for I don't know how long. It feels like it's starting to drag, and I'm getting sick of seeing the amount of GERs or white snakes I'm seeing. Body redesigns, I feel like there's no body that I really complain about. In terms of optimization, there are a few things I have to complain. I feel like the two big ones are Harpoon and Emerald Splash. Those definitely feel like to be the laggiest of the moves and the most outdated by far. I don't think Emerald Splash has went through a predominant change since I started playing the game. And Emerald Splash used to be like the only spec move, so it was on every stand. So, but Emerald Splash just feels cheap and laggy, and like I don't know if it's just my really quote unquote bad PC or the move itself is just generally laggy. I've seen a lot of players complain about lag. They're fixing server optimization, which is great, but I feel like deleting private servers may be a little bit of an iffy choice because a lot of players I think spend a lot of time auto farming, and I know it's quote unquote sad. Oh, they spent 72 hours. It's not like they're sitting at their computer sitting at 72 hours. They're doing something else while their computer kind of runs in the background. It's one of the easiest ways and passive ways to get cash. So capping that every 24 hours may be a bit of a look down on, but that's just me. We'll have to see how that is. I think overall that is much better for optimizing servers. But yeah, I kind of now want to kind of gear into the economy. This was an unavoidable talk because I feel like you can't really talk about Stance Online without talking about its community. Because its community, it's very 50-50. Like, on one hand, you have really incredible people in the community like Breath. I know people like to make fun of him, but he's actually a really nice guy. Myself, I feel like our mod team is very nice, other than all the mods are nice. I don't know why they're bullying that quoting. Oh, who is it? I don't even remember their username, but best FNF player, ping him relentlessly for the giveaway. We'll talk about giveaways in a second because that gonna tie into the community. Um, but I think our mod team, our admin team, our developer team, a lot of stuff like that. I think we have a lot of mainly good members, and like even though there's always like the one skeleton in the closet that comes out, like with Chode Killer and stuff like that, it works. I think we just have a good community. But the economy itself is dead. When I first started playing the game, the economy was the best thing ever because you could trade anything for anything, and it just felt kind of magical. There was no really set standard. Well, as of now, there's kind of like a bubble what's good and what's considered valuable. And like the thing is that's really sad is like you can't fix that. You can't fix that without ruining something or weakening something. But I'm gonna talk about in the terms of rolled stands, not giveaway stands, because it feels so pointless to try and trade for a giveaway stand or say that a stand is valuable because it has a funny star in its name. Because most players will say, "Oh, well, no, that stand is super good for PvP. It's super good. It's the best one of its kind." People said that about my Made in Heaven Wreck when I had it still. But at the same time, it will never be at the level that those other stands that have funny stars and stuff like that will never be able to trade for stuff like that just because it's rolled. And you can't really fix that. It's basically monopolies like Intimidator, Evian, uh, probably Osby, Geo. They kind of had like Katie as of recently, but I think Katie took a break. Good for them. I think it's good to take a break from this game once in a while. I have multiple times, but I feel like those are the richest players, and they will kind of always be the richest players. And there's nothing really you can do about it. A lot of people have said, "Oh, their stand shouldn't exist because Rekka Wages and stuff." That's a whole other can of worms that I don't really want to talk about. It should be like deleted or they're unfair. But my mindset has always been that they've kind of always just kind of naturally kind of existed. I said kind of way too much in that sentence, and that they can always be kind of like a goal to trade for. But I've kind of now shifted that position because you can't really trade for those because they're never gonna be traded and stuff like that, and it just feels cheap. Like I spent 8 months going through this one stand, uh, and my big gripe was that is like all of a sudden altar points started getting handed out by crazy, and now there's like it just doesn't feel as special anymore. Like I feel like at this point, uh, stands don't feel as unique as they do, as perfects have kind of fallen into favor, or stands just with incredible value. And like the thing is it's so apparent with the community. I know one certain player, I forget their name, made a tier list of like all the giveaways, and I was like, "Oh, why don't you add this stand?" I think it was that KCOH that I was talking about in my last video. It's the only one of its kind. It's really cool and it's pretty good. And they're like, "Oh, if I add that stand, then all of the other stands like that I have to add." And it just goes to really show how even making a stand as like giveaway stands or event stands or custom stuff that like aren't special anymore, and like they've been handed out like lollipops at this point. I feel like in the past few months, and I feel like I think it was Abe said it that I don't want my events to be structured around altar points was really cool and really smart because it goes to show that he's kind of doing it for fun, like what how most events should be geared towards. I think events should be for fun things. It shouldn't be about the prize. It should be about the experience. But I know that's just my old man rattling his cane at the youth again. Like I don't really experience that stuff, and I really can't experience that stuff. And I've always kind of never have a plan to alter anything because half the time I'm at my job. But that's just me being me. Um, I have fun with the game while I can and when I can. But I feel like the economy is just an unfixable mess. In terms of members, I think they're all great, uh, and I think a lot of people believe that they should be testers or stuff like that. That's something I also hear a lot, like, "Oh, make me tester, make me this. I can fix the game." Uh, I don't. We don't need any more testers. Stop adding them. Like, honestly, uh, I know my one friend talks about how he wants to be a tester because he wants to fix the game, but come on, everyone just wants a custom. And it's kind of disgusting. Like the game has fallen into that position where it's like, hey, look what it's not no longer. Hey, can I trade my cool roll stand for your cool roll stand? It's like the only way I can have a cool stand is if I get made one by an admin, which is just the wrong position because it goes against the gameplay itself. But yeah, I don't really have much more to talk about. Like again, like I wanted to talk about other stuff, but as of recently, with them pushing updates and kind of promising this whole stat rework. I'll probably do an update video then. But as of now, I'm just kind of really excited to see how the game turns out. I think there's a lot of things. I think with a good map redesign, some form of base tutorial, and maybe the adjustment of how stand pools work and how certain moves function in PvP so that things feel a little more balanced and a little more fair, that the game can just be so much better than what it is now. Because I feel like we've kind of crossed the dark ages of SO. That being like I think last Easter event up to probably when they first published this map was really bad because some of the updates were so questionable and stuff like that. But yeah, I feel like as long as like the dev team is listening to the community. One of the most important things you have to do in game design, the game should be on the right track. And I really want to see this game succeed as much of you do. Uh, Again, I've been playing this game for 3 years, and it's really been a joy. This game holds a special place in my heart, as corny as that sounds, but honestly, I don't think I've poured as many hours into any video game in my life other than Stance Online. Stance Online has definitely been the most hours I've poured into any game, which goes to really show just how important the game is, not only to me, but to so many other players. And yeah, that's all I really wanted to say. This has been Alpha Stuff Splits, or whatever the fuck you want to call me, and thanks for listening to my commentary if you made it all the way through.